Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm going to do a classic rock reaction. This is Led Zeppelin, man. This is Led Zeppelin 4, a song called Rock and Roll. And, it's been a while getting through Led Zeppelin 3 and finally going into Led Zeppelin 4. So I'm interested to really, now that I know Led Zeppelin 3, compare the dynamic difference between these two albums, because I'm being told by a lot of you that there was a really big shift. It's as if they turned the dial up from Led Zeppelin 3 and went in a slightly different direction from even the first two albums, which was very heavily blues based, and supposedly this song or this album is a little bit more mainstream rock based. So it's interesting to explore some of the little dynamic changes of Led Zeppelin as they're going along their growth progression. So let's check this out, man. Rock and roll. Led Zeppelin, rock and roll. Let's get it. Can't count the tears of a life with no love. Listen to this jam. Man. Brilliant. Making vows that just can't work right. I have a visual of my friends air guitaring and dancing to this. Dancing badly. Rock and roll. Led Zeppelin. Man, oh man. What can you say about rock and roll? All I can say is that is probably one of the most classic of rock and roll songs ever heard. I can't imagine that there's any people out there who doesn't like this song. Oh my gosh, I gotta ask this question. If there is such a creature out there that doesn't like this song, I want you to tell me who you are and tell me why you don't like this song. If there is such a creature out there that doesn't like Led Zeppelin's rock and roll, I want you to tell me why that is. Tell me who you are and tell me why that is. I can't imagine anyone not liking this tune, man. Fantastic song. It's quintessential cornerstone representing a really, really cool rock and roll song. It's got everything. Great lyrics, great vocals, tells a cool story, great riff, great rhythm section, the little drum roll at the back end. Man, what more do you need? You know what I'm saying? And again, here's another question. Here's the same question from my Black Dog question. Where in your list of Led Zeppelin songs does rock and roll fit in? Is it in your top 10, your top 20? Okay, a lot of you are telling me now that it's unfair to ask such a question because you've got to give Led Zeppelin like a top 50. That's what I've been told. Okay, fair enough. I mean, I'm only 3 and a bit albums in. So yeah, okay, I got 5 more to go. So maybe let me know where rock and roll fits in your lineup of Led Zeppelin songs. If it's in your top 10, top 20, top 30, 40, or 50. And tell me, if it's your favorite song, tell me why it is. Tell me about the song, how it makes you feel. Tell me about the memory associated to it. For me, it triggers memories. I'm finding and discovering that classic rock songs, even though it wasn't my genre growing up, as I'm hearing certain songs, it's triggering a whole host of memories for me. Does your brain work like that? Does it work like mine, where memories are associated to songs? Let me know. If I don't have a memory, I have a familiarity, meaning that I know that I've heard this before. Can't tell you when, where, what I was doing, but I know that I've heard it before. Something like that, but it always seems to trigger some sort of memory for me. And let me know if it's the same for you, and specifically what this song means to you, where it fits in your lineup, what memory it triggers. Was it a part of your growing up? Was it there? And you know what? Don't limit yourself to the song. Also tell me about the album itself, what the album means to you, what it's, where were you in life when you first heard this, and what kind of state of, I'll just say state of shock you were in when you first heard this for the first time. Because you know what? Let's go back to when I first heard this song, man. This was my very, very first Led Zeppelin song. The first song that I've heard from Led Zeppelin. And I remember it, man. I was 12, going on 13. And I was over at my buddy Craig's place. Craig had a twin brother, Chris. I was tight with Craig. I was never tight with Chris. And their older brother, Vince, it was a Friday night, and we were having a sleepover, and don't know what we did, but we pissed Vince off, man. He was like, yo, you bastards are going to bed now. So he sent us to bed at 8 o'clock or something like that on a Friday night. So we pissed him off really bad. I can't remember why. Anyway, man, couple of hours later, the music starts. So Vince used to have these crazy ass parties. The parents were out of town at their cottage up north, and so Vince would have all his buddies over and all of the girls, the cheerleaders from the high school, and they would be having these crazy parties. Anyway, man, at some point in time in the night, I heard this song, and immediately the voice of Robert Plant got me. That got my attention right away. And then I started honing in on the guitar riff, and then the nice booming background of the rhythm section came in. And then you have the bridges and the little isolated little bits of guitaring, and then that little drum solo at the end. Yo, along the course of that song, I caught myself doing this. You know, I was in bed, looked at the clock. It was 1:35 a.m. in the morning. I remember that like it was yesterday. After a period of time, and I guess a couple of more sleepovers and parties later, I've came to learn that this was a rock and roll by Led Zeppelin. And so that was the first tie-in of Led Zeppelin, my first experience with Led Zeppelin. Rock and roll, this song is the first song that I've heard. And then years and years later, when I was in the Navy, I can't remember who, I think it was one of the officers on the bridge. He used to play Led Zeppelin, especially when we were doing our replenishment at sea exercises. And that's when I started hearing most of Led Zeppelin 2, starting with Whole Lotta Love and some of the other associated. So my Led Zeppelin exposure over the years has been divided and very, very choppy in different places, you know. But anyway, man, just like all the other songs, this song has a very commanding appeal. It gets your attention. There's a slight haunting element in Robert Plant's voice that just arrests your attention immediately, and then your attention goes to the great musicianship, you know, all of the riffs and all of the boom and the thunder coming from it. Fantastic. It doesn't matter if you are a fan of jazz, a fan of blues, a fan of R&B, soft rock, classic rock, whatever. You hear this song, you're going to have a reaction, especially if you're hearing it for the first time. And how can you not like it? But yeah, man, any creatures out there that don't like this song, I want to hear from you. All right, so let's just do a quick read, man, on Led Zeppelin. And then we're going to just do a read on the background of the song, and then rap a little bit more. So, quick read on Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin were an English rock band formed in London in 1968. The group consisted of guitarist Jimmy Page, singer Robert Plant, bassist and keyboardist John Paul Jones, and drummer John Bonham. The band's heavy, guitar-driven sound has led them to be cited as one of the progenitors of heavy metal. Their style drew from a wide variety of influences, including blues, psychedelia, and folk music. After changing their name from the New Yardbirds, Led Zeppelin signed a deal with Atlantic Records that afforded them considerable artistic freedom. Although the group were initially unpopular with critics, they achieved significant commercial success. Led Zeppelin are widely considered one of the most successful, innovative, and influential rock groups in history. They are one of the best-selling music artists in the history of audio recording. Various sources estimate the group's record sales at 200 to 300 million units worldwide. With RIAA certified sales of 111.5 million units, they are the third best-selling band in the US. I believe Michael Jackson and the Beatles are 2 and 1 respectively. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1995. The museum's biography of the band states that they were as influential during the 1970s as the Beatles were during the 1960s. Excellent. That last part is astounding. All the other accolades are trumped when compared to that last part, as influential culturally in the 70s as the Beatles were influential in the 60s. That is astounding right there. Alright, so rock and roll. Rock and Roll is a song by English rock band Led Zeppelin, which was first released as the second track from the band's fourth album in 1971. The song includes a guest appearance by the Rolling Stones pianist Ian Stewart. In 1972, Robert Christgau called it, quote, simply the most dynamic hard rock song in music. Overview. Befitting its title, the song is based on one of the most popular structures in rock and roll, the three-chord song. It is performed in the key of A at a tempo of 170 beats per minute. Led Zeppelin guitarist Jimmy Page explained that the song developed from a spontaneous jam session while the band were trying and failing to finish the track Four Sticks at the Headley Grange mansion they had rented in Hampshire, England to record the track. John Bonham began playing the drum introduction from Little Richard's song Keep On Knocking, to which Page added a Chuck Berry-style guitar riff. Robert Plant wrote the lyrics, which were a response to critics who claimed their previous album, Led Zeppelin III, wasn't really rock and roll. Led Zeppelin III had more of an acoustic folk sound, and Plant wanted to prove they could still rock out. This is Plant being quoted here. Quote, "We just thought rock and roll needed to be taken on again," he told Cream in 1988. "I was finally in a really successful band, and we felt it was time for actually kicking ass. It wasn't an intellectual thing, because we didn't have time for that. We just wanted to let it all come flooding out. It was a very animal thing, a hellishly powerful thing, what we were doing." Unquote. Infused with creative energy, they put Four Sticks aside and started working on this new song, which they called It's Been a Long Time. Jimmy Page blasted out a guitar part, and the bones of the song were completed in about 30 minutes. Wow. Live performances. Rock and roll was a key component of the band's set list at Led Zeppelin concerts from 1971 on. Initially, Plant referred to it on stage as It's Been a Long Time, which is the first line of the song. In 1972, it was elevated to the opening number of all concert performances, and it retained this status until '75. For the band's 1977 North American tour, it became part of a medley encore with Whole Lotta Love, and during 1979 and 1980, it became an encore in its own right. A live performance of the song from Madison Square Garden in July 1973 was recorded for the band's concert film The Song Remains the Same, an accompanying soundtrack album. There is also a June 1972 live recording of Rock and Roll, which has been captured on the album How the West Was Won. Okay. So yeah, How the West Was Won. So they're calling that an album. So it was a concert called How the West Was Won. And then they pitched that concert as an individual album. So if I'm not mistaken, How the West Was Won is just a compilation of their already established songs, right? There are no new Led Zeppelin songs to discover on How the West Was Won, correct? Let me know, because I'm assuming it's just a concert with songs that have already premiered and that are already known. If not, then I've got another album to get through. In 1985, Page, Plant, and Jones reunited and performed the song at the Live Aid concert at John F. Kennedy Stadium in Philadelphia as part of the Led Zeppelin set featuring drummers Tony Thompson and Phil Collins. Rock and Roll was also performed as the final encore at Led Zeppelin's reunion show at the O2 Arena, London on the 10th of December 2007, where, due to Robert Plant's aging voice, it is played down a whole step. On the 7th of June 2008, Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones joined Foo Fighters frontman Dave Grohl and drummer Taylor Hawkins on stage at Wembley Stadium to perform Rock and Roll along with Ramble On. Yeah, Ramble On. Led Zeppelin 2, Ramble On. Yeah, that's The Darkest Depths of Mohr. I Met a Girl So Fair. That's the Lord of the Rings song, Ramble On. Yeah, Ramble On. It's sung from the point of view of King Aragon. He's got to go off on a crusade, and then along the way he loses contact with his elf queen. Yeah, Ramble On. Good song, great song. Great story. Alright, there. Popular culture. This has been covered by many other artists, including Def Leppard and Heart. In 2001, it was recorded by Double Trouble, Stevie Ray Vaughan's backup band, for their 2001 album, Been a Long Time. Susan Tedeschi sang lead on the track. Stevie Nicks added this to her live set in 2001. This was the first Led Zeppelin song used in a commercial. Cadillac used it to kick off a new advertising campaign in 2002 with the tagline, Breakthrough. The company was going for a hip, new image since their audience was slowly dying off. The spots aired for the first time on the Super Bowl, and sales rose 16% the next year. Okay. That is Wikipedia Song Fact info on the band and the song, Rock and Roll. Fantastic, man. Fantastic. Yeah, man. These guys, they really knew what they were doing where it comes to what albums to release at a certain time. They had their door breakers in the first and the second album. They were secure within their structure at that point to go in a different direction and experiment with Led Zeppelin 3. And then they were able to easily bring it back to more of a rock and roll base and really turn the dial up. So where it comes to their timing progression, they were very smart in what they released, when they released it. I'm starting to see that pattern. Very smart. They had their loyal staple fans, and they were able to ebb and flow a little bit with their experimentation, still remaining very cutting edge, very fresh. Somebody along the way had that figured out before they even got started. I'm betting it was Jimmy Page. I'm betting that his experience from session work, seeing all of these different bands come and go, and then his experiences in the Yardbirds especially, probably really helped to have him sit down and plot this out. And John Paul Jones, of course, having the same amount of experience and that sort of thing, probably complemented that sentiment that Page had, that vision, saying, yeah, definitely this is the way that we should go in regards to staying relevant and keeping our base and adding more and growing, So I think that these guys were not just master musicians. I think that they were master strategists. I think that they understood their market. I think that they were ahead. I think they were steps ahead of where the market would be. I remember watching a biography on Wayne Gretzky, and the interviewer was asking him, how are you able to get through these huge defensive lines with guys much bigger than yourself and still get the puck into the net and score? How are you able to score so much? He said, two things. I visualize the puck going into the net, and then I put myself where I think the puck is going to be. I don't chase the puck. I put myself where I think it's going to be, and that really helps to just cut through a lot of hard work. And so I heard that. I thought, wow, the guy's a great visionary. Led Zeppelin, in the same way, I believe that they sat down, they looked at their market, they visualized themselves 10 years from that point of where they were going to be, and they're like, okay, this is how we're going to structure our progression into the genre of rock and roll. And because it was new, I know that Cream was doing a heavy sound, Hendrix was there, the Doors were around and that sort of thing. And I think that Page said, yeah, you know, we've got this heavy sound, it's got appeal right now, but will it have appeal 5 years from now? It will, but it's going to be changing, so we've got to be ahead of that. I think that's what they sat down and they talked about. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you guys know, maybe there's some sort of writing a book, something like that, complementing what I said. Or maybe I'm way the hell off. I'm just guessing. Let me know either way. All right, man. Yo, man. So going back to this song, I love the energy of this song, the energy signature of this song. It's fun. It's great. It's contemporary for back then, even now. And like I said, I would be hard put to find anyone who doesn't like this tune. And if you don't catch yourself bobbing and shaking your head or tapping a digit of some sort, then you are, I don't know, man. You are needing some sort of therapy, because this tune is one of the quintessential elements in rock and roll, in my mind. You know, and I'm not that well versed with Led Zeppelin, but I know enough about rock and roll to know where I place this song on the platform of great rock and roll songs like Freebird, you know, and the great songs like that. So that's where I put this song, definitely up there. All right, man. Let me just scroll down real quick here and see if I have any notes before I bounce. Yeah, that was the only note, and I actually asked the question already. Where do you place this song in your list of Led Zeppelin favorites? And if it's your favorite, tell me why it is, and break it down for me as to the memories you have and where you were when you first heard it and what your first impressions of the song was. That would be very interesting. Getting into the minds of a Led Zeppelin fan is it's an odyssey in itself. So I'm intrigued by some of the stories that I get as to where you guys were, what you were doing, how your parents reacted, and the little dynamic stories like that. I find it very interesting and really good read in the comment section. So keep those personal accounts coming, because I enjoy reading that stuff. Anyways, man, listen, thanks very much for joining me. Hope you liked my rock and roll reaction. And yeah, Led Zeppelin, where are we? We're in May. I'm super hellaciously busy right now, but my goal is to get a Led Zeppelin reaction done at least once a week. So maybe twice, I don't know, we'll see how it goes. I'll probably only be able to do one a week. But anyway, man, yeah, I'll definitely get on to the next track on Led Zeppelin 4 in a couple of days. My patrons will see it first, and then in a week's time, then everyone else will probably see it. So have yourselves a good day, take care, and I'll see you in my next Led Zeppelin reaction. Peace.